Here on Tech 360 and NDTV in Davos, we've spoken to so many leaders, world leaders, CEOs. Sometimes it's important to get the tech conversations right and understand what's happening with AI and tech over here in Davos with technologists. And that's why I'm here with a very special guest, Bryan Harris of SAS. What a pleasure to meet you.
Aayush, pleasure meeting you as well, and thank you for having me.
Bryan is, of course, the CTO at SAS, which is a company that understands data analytics and AI for enterprise in a way like no other. So Bryan, it's a pleasure to see you. You've flown in from the US and we've gotten you right outside USA House.
Yes.
But it's fascinating because I believe this is your first time here in Davos. It's mine too. Later on in my show, I'm going to give my verdict. But since we've caught up early this morning, what would you make of your first experience here in Davos? Is it genuinely conversations that are happening about tech and AI where there's value to add and there's something to take away?
I think there's like two categories of conversations. There's kind of macro, if you will, categories around just how do we deal with the connection between technology and politics and economics at a macro scale. But there's also, I would hope for, is a more micro conversation, which is like, how do we give more pragmatic guidance to companies to actually be impactful and achieve real ROI with AOI? And I think for me, that's where I'd like to see more emphasis on that. SAS is a global leader in the space, and we've been doing it for 50 years. We're celebrating our 50th anniversary this year. Thank you. And our core value proposition to our customers is delivering them knowledge in the moments that matter. And to do that, you have to be one of the most trusted data and AI partners with them. And the only way you earn trust is to unlock value. We only earn revenue on unlocking value for our customers. So for us, it's really a very kind of on the ground, roll your sleeves up conversation on how do we help customers achieve value with AI.
What are some of the top conversations you've been having with customers and peers over here? Are there concepts like data sovereignty, the full tech ecosystem, regulation, and maybe more responsible AI? Are these conversations that we're only getting in press releases, or are they happening in the decision-making rooms?
Well, I think first of all, I think what we're seeing is the conversation is what I would say is that we talk about the trust factor, and I think that when we talk about establishing trust with AI, which is a big conversation right now, I always say that the first step in earning trust with AI is leaders earning the trust of their workforce. And the reason for that is because if you want to increase AI adoption, you need to have a culture that is about investing in people to level themselves up with AI so that they can then adopt AI. But if you're going to use AI as a threat to them, then you're going to actually hinder adoption of AI. And I think it's a really important nuance all leaders need to be thinking about, is that really investing in people allows you to unlock more AI adoption. And I think that's something that's not really communicated well right now in the market.
How do we fix this? Because at a fora like this, where Davos, you see literally every world leader walking down the streets as we're talking. You walk into the Congress Center and you see some of the big technologists, the biggest founders of the world. But while this conversation should be happening in some of those rooms, a lot of the attention deviates when especially announcements from world leaders come about, and then AI takes a little bit of a backseat in practice.
Well, I think there's this connection between the technology is actually driving both economic and geopolitical conversations, and I think that's what's very unique right now. AI is at the center of these two things. From a geopolitical perspective, it's around making sure countries have a decision advantage on their own security, and then from an economic perspective, it's how do we create advantage in the market for each country, and that's why you're seeing a little bit of this kind of sovereign data centers and the sovereign data pulling up, because people are trying to create economic advantage through AI. And so in ways, AI is at the center of all of it. But at the end of the day, many companies are global in nature, and they got to get work done. And so what I'm really interested in is how do we help them roll their sleeves up, have pragmatic guidance on how to leverage AI or when not to leverage AI. One of the frustrations I have is that generative AI and agentic AI is one part of the AI pie. AI is a class of capability. There are machine learning, traditional machine learning models, deep learning, and then yes, generative AI and large language models. And it's important that companies feel empowered to choose when they should use generative AI and when they shouldn't. And I think right now I think organizations are being browbeaten to use agentic and large language models when in many cases they may not. We do work with, say, for instance, the Bank of India, where we help them basically reimagine their entire risk framework for their organization. And we've taken their risk calculations down from basically 5 hours to 1 hour. right? And it's incredible improvements in efficiency for them. We work with Shriram General Insurance, where we've taken their entire underwriting process down and the whole actuarial process from 15 days down to 2 days. That's real outcomes that we want to deliver for our customers, and I think we need to have more of those types of conversations.
There's also talk of the AI super cycle, and like you said, some of these things, LLMs, SLMs, for the everyday consumer, how you use ChatGPT or Gemini, and then from the enterprise side as well. As these ambitions are scaled, you require a lot more resources for that sort of compute. And in terms, I think President Trump alluded to it as well, in terms of the energy required for this. It's maybe twice as much as, even in the US, what's currently available. Is that a little bit of a concern when you're scaling up and selling these solutions to customers? How do we provide for it, especially when resources currently are scarce?
Well, the one thing we can always know about scarcity is that it actually drives innovation, right? When you don't have resources, you typically find new ways to do and solve problems. So I am confident that the pressures of the AI market will force innovation in energy, which is a good thing. But I also think that we're over-indexing on using generative AI and agentic AI when it's not always needed. It can be an expensive solve. There are much more simpler solves. I'll give you an example. We have 2 of the largest central governments in the world that are using machine learning models for us to prevent tax fraud. Each of them saved $10 billion on our models. And that's an example. I think that's a pretty good ROI, and it's all part of AI, but it's using the right class of AI for the right problem. And when people talk about bubbles in the market, to me, it's not about a bubble of the entire AI market. It's about, the bubble is when we're applying AI for the wrong use cases, right? And it's not the right solve. And I think one of the most important things we can do to improve the success rate of AI is to make sure we apply it to the right use cases.
Would you think, all of this taken into consideration, that this has been a trip worthwhile to Davos, especially since it's your first time, and some of the conversations you've had and the announcements that have been made, given what you do in the US at SAS? Is this something that is worthwhile, or was there scope for improvement?
Well, I think we should always be looking to improve. I think that connecting this macro to the micro conversation is really important. I also think that hearing from your peers that you're talking to in the industry, whether they're customers or not, and just level setting ourselves on what we think is important. And I think for me, one of my most important messages right now is investing in people. The conversation right now is about displacement of people, and I think this is a really arrogant position. This is not the end of innovation in the arc of humanity, and we're treating it as if we've solved every problem at this very moment in time and that AI is just going to solve the rest of them. I think that's just a very arrogant position. I'm very hopeful in human ingenuity. Our founder, Jim Goodnight, our CEO, has been a CEO who has led around investing in people first and in amplifying their capabilities with technology to help our customers navigate that. And I think that we've done that successfully for 50 years, profitably for 50 years, and I think this is a great blueprint. And I believe SAS, we are a company that has the experience and wisdom at a moment right now that's very important on how we navigate AI moving forward.
And thank you, Bryan, for joining us and sharing that wisdom with us on Tech 360. What a pleasure to have this chat with you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Pleasure.